Okay. My name is Caitlin Allen. I'm here interviewing Louian Erickson. I'm going to ask some questions where we can get to know each other. My first question I'm going to ask you is, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, I like to go to movies and I like to go out to eat.
Yeah.
And I belong to a singles group that we go on trips. In fact, I'm getting ready to go on one pretty soon in April, going to Branson.
Cool. Um, what do you do in your spare time?
On my spare time, well, when I have some spare time, I've been doing some scrapbooking,
Oh yeah.
trying to give my family, trying to get my family albums done, and it's really a mess because my mother's married a Fowler, and my grandmother was a Fowler, and
Ah,
there you see, and so I have it on both sides with the same last name, even though they weren't related.
right. Okay. What I'm going to do today in this interview is talk to you about your experience working as an RN in the psychiatric. Um, I'm going to go into your background. What made you want to do that career?
As a nurse, well, well, I had taught elementary school and decided that I wanted to do something different besides teaching elementary children.
Right.
And I was always interested in the medical field, and I read a lot of material on it before I ever went back to school to get my uh, degree in nursing. But I already had my bachelor's degree in education.
Okay.
And of course, I didn't really have any particular interest at that time, except I thought, well, maybe I thought I would like to work in an acute care hospital, which I did work at Methodist Hospital, which of course isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And then I worked in a nursing home. I was the director of nurses in one facility, assistant director in another. And then I decided, well, I want to do something else, so I went through, started working for the state of Missouri at Northwest Missouri Psychiatric Rehabilitation Center, or the St. Joseph State Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked there, I retired from there. I worked there 20 years.
Okay. Um, how long altogether have you been in the medical field? Working in the nursing home, the state hospital, all of it?
I have to stop and think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 35 years.
35 years?
Mm-hmm.
Long time.
Yeah, it has been.
Okay. When you worked in the state hospital, what's the primary people you worked with? Like schizophrenia people, or all kinds, or?
Mine were all schizophrenics, and mine were all not guilty by reason of insanity. They were forensic patients, which means they had a crime against person,
Okay.
rapists, murderers, and child molesters, and things like that.
Okay. Was it harder to work with males or females, or neither?
It's easier to work with males than it is females. I had worked out part-time with some women there, and I had some mixed women in with the guys, depending on what it was. But men seem to somewhere, even though they're not always quite knowing what's going on, they're not as um, likely to hurt you because somewhere along the line they have been women. You treat them different than you do men,
Mm-hmm.
and women are they're really mean. These crazy women are mean.
Yeah.
They are but you realize they're mentally ill.
Right.
And so usually, but sometimes you can get some that are not too good. I mean, I have been had computers thrown at me,
Oh
my name written in blood. Fortunately, it wasn't mine; it was his. He cut his finger, but and it was interesting. Also, it is not, and they can get out of control.
my. Yeah.
And but working with mental patients was a whole lot different than working with the medical field, even though I didn't do a lot of medical things. I mean, I gave medicine and took vitals,
Right.
but, you know, it was, and then I was trying to teach some of them. We had different programs, and at the time that I was doing this, we were dealing with trying to teach them how, when they got out, how to take their own medicine. But of course, somebody had to watch them,
Right.
and of course, usually we'd get off the track because didn't, they don't follow too well.
Yeah. Um, what was the advantages of this job? What did you really, really like about it?
The advantage of the job, well, one of the advantages is that most of the time, I won't say all the time, working as a nurse, you usually didn't have to work overtime because somebody didn't come in.
Right.
And it was something different than what I had done because I had done so many things with physical problems.
Mhm.
And I just thought it would be good to change something. And I scored really well on my psych part when I got my nursing degree. And some of the gals that were in my class, they said, "How did you manage to do that?" Whatever score I made, I said, "Well, it just sounded like the right thing to do." And it was the right answer.
Yeah.
And I said, "So apparently I've figured it out. I don't really know."
Uh-huh. Um, any disadvantages to this job? Working in the mental hospital?
You can get hurt.
You can.
You can get hurt.
Do you have any like crazy stories or anything that's happened to you working in that field, or anything that's actually like scared you?
Well, I have when I was sitting at my desk writing on some paperwork, and this young man came up and he was upset, and we had plexiglass except it shattered everywhere and it fell all over me.
Oh my.
And then I had to call security, and he had cut himself and he was running from us, because, and I couldn't see what was going on because I couldn't hardly catch him. And then we had to send him and have him stitched up.
Oh my.
And and it was, and then because he was acting, I mean, when one of them acts up, the others do too.
Right.
And it just goes, and that means then you have a lot more documentation.
Ah.
And I had already worked that day. Let's see, went to work at 7, and I left at 3 o'clock the next morning.
Oh my. Long shift, huh?
Well, I worked a double shift, but you see, all the work, what you had to do because of all the things that happened,
Right.
you can't leave it as a nurse. You have to stay and get it done.
Right. Hmm.
And anyway, and I've had that, not quite that experience, but when I worked in an acute care hospital, I mean, I've had to stay home over too because of that.
Right.
It's just the job.
Yeah. Okay, now we're gonna go into like the education requirements.
Okay.
How long did it take you to get your degrees?
Well, I started I went to college when I was, let's see, in 1963. That's only been a year or two back. And I went to school for a while, and then I decided not to go to school, and then I went back to school, and then I got married, and I went to school part-time,
Mm-hmm.
and I finally got my bachelor's degree in education, let's see, in 1968. And I taught, let's see, the 2nd and 4th grade. And then we moved here in St. Joe from Dallas, Texas, where I was born and raised. And I taught school probably 2 years, and then I stayed home raising kids. And then I decided to go back to college. And let's see, that was in 1978, and I took just 1 or 2 classes. And I graduated in 80 with my nursing degree from Missouri Western.
Oh. Um, so what kind of degrees do you have? Right. Like what'd you get going to school? What all the
I
degrees?
have a bachelor. I have a BS in education, and I have an associate degree in nursing. But basically, I didn't really need to do much of anything else because I met all the requirements because of my other degree. So
Right.
and I wasn't any reason to go to a 4-year school when I'd already taken all of it.
Right. Um, and now you're a teacher at Hilliard Technical Center teaching the CNA classes, right?
Yes, and I had taught CNA classes in long-term care facilities, and I've helped write some materials for those classes also. And I've been teaching those since, let's see, about 1974
Okay. And how'd you get the job?
at Hilliard.
Mhm.
Well, I was a state examiner, and the way that program is set up, you have to have the examiner has to get certified, and of course I had done that, and so I would, when they had students that went through their program, then I would have them at a facility and test them. And I really wasn't hired by Hilliard's. The student hired me, but if they had gone through Hilliard's, then Hilliard's paid me for the classes. And so when I decided to retire, I decided to start teaching for them because I had taught for another facilities in Cameron and all different places.
Okay. Do you like teaching?
Yes, I have enjoyed it. I have.
So once, since you were a teacher at Hilliard's, did you have to go back to school to be a teacher?
No, I was certified.
You were certified before, so you didn't
I was
have to.
certified through the state of Texas and the state of Missouri also as a teacher.
Cool. So whenever you were done, I mean, you didn't have no schooling to go back to. You just.
When I retired from Northwest Missouri Psychiatric Rehabilitation Center, that's a mouthful, of the St. Joseph State Hospital, no, I didn't have to because I had taken classes a long time ago to be an instructor, and that instructor would also, because of going through the curriculum, I was able to teach classes with it too. So.
Okay. What's the advantages of teaching? And teaching, a medical class.
Well, the advantages, well, first I think you have to like teaching,
Right.
and some of the advantages of teaching, of course, is not having to work the kind of hours you do working in a hospital,
Right.
and you have more time for your family, and also you don't have to stay over for hours because of different shifts.
Right.
And I said, with the family, it made it so much easier not to have that to happen.
Okay. Do you have any disadvantages of being a teacher?
Well, the thing about it being a teacher is that, of course, a lot of times that you have students who need help and you stay after class, which I do that, and I come in early
Mm-hmm.
to help them. And of course, those are things that are pretty much on my time.
Right. So you're doing that out of your kindness to help them.
Yes, and I don't mind doing it.
Right.
But it takes a lot of time, and of course, and sometimes you help help the students make up time or go over things, and sometimes I have to read the test to the students.
Right. Okay.
But I enjoy what I've done. I really have. It's got like any job. Every job's got its good and bad points.
Right. At some point,
At
there's
some
always
point,
something.
there's always something.
Okay. Do you have any questions to ask me about anything?
No, not that I'm aware of. You're doing this for one of your classes,
Mm-hmm.
and so.
Yeah. I want to be in the medical field, and I figured, since you have been a nurse and RN and worked in different hospitals, I mean, I thought you were a really good person to interview, and I'm a CNA right now, and you teach the class, and
Yeah, and I can sit. I can teach also the med tech classes too.
Okay. Well, I want to go ahead and thank you for giving me your time to interview you, and that's about it.
Well, I appreciate it, and I hope it helps you out.
Thank you.